All right, everybody. Hey, we've got Zach Beutler on today talking really a lot of things. We've got Jungle Driving School, which for my money is the most innovative, exciting new franchise opportunity in the business model. We're talking about cattle farm, franchisor, franchisee. And I'll tell you what, I think Zach Beutler, he's someone who's been a friend of the firm. He's definitely someone who's a thought leader within the franchise industry. I liken when Zach Beutler does something new. It's kind of like when Deion Sanders went and started coaching Colorado. No one really understood or paid much attention to Colorado football. Then Deion put it on the map, breathed some innovation and some life into it, and all of a sudden, all of us are following that program. If you follow college football, so I ran into Zach, caught up with Zach a couple of weeks ago out at our conference with our other FranNet consultants, and he filled me in and cast the vision on a new franchise that he's working on called Jungle Drive-In, and I won't steal his thunder. I'll let him dig into all of this. But when Zach does something in the franchise industry, it's typically worth paying attention to. So wanted to get the word out to you all today. So Zach, how's it going? What's going on out in Omaha, Nebraska today?
Well, I'm at the ranch today, so the ranch office, but it's a rainy day, which I'm excited because we need the rain. And back to back today. This week's been a little bit of chaos, which I would prefer, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, spoken like a true farmer and a true entrepreneur. Rainy day, busy day, maybe things that most of us dread. Zach embraces them. So, Zach, start off here. Tell us a little bit about your story, how you got into franchising, and then what keeps you busy now. Because I know you're repping the Beutler beef hat. You're talking from the ranch. You've got a cattle business. So tell me about what you've got in the works right now, what keeps you busy right now, and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, so I came from an entrepreneurial family, number one, and I think that's growing up where I don't want to say you value having your own schedule, because that really wasn't it, but I think that there's this value in it. It's ours. It was the family business, and I wanted that feeling. And my grandpa was kind of my hero growing up, and I wanted to be like my grandpa. And he always had snakeskin boots and was always dressed like a true cowboy. And everybody always had a lot of respect for my grandpa. And he actually did the books in the business up until his 90th birthday. Wow. And so my grandpa's still alive. He's going to be 92 this year. And so growing up in that, I ended up going to college, and I had to have money to pay the bills. So I got a part-time job at a nutrition store. And the background there was the nutrition store. The guy that owned it actually owned the top grossing GNCs in the country. And he started his own basically competitor, and then he wanted to franchise. Well, I started 2 weeks later, everybody quit. I was the new manager by default, and I was 18, and I was good at that, and saved up some money and started opened one of the first locations down in Tallahassee, Florida. Didn't know a soul. I just knew that I wanted a college town, that I would prefer a state capital, and I wanted a fun place to go. So I went from a small town of 1,000 people to Lincoln, Nebraska to college, then clear across the country where I didn't know a soul to Tallahassee, and it was awesome. 1.2 million first year open, and then within 30 months opened 6 more locations, and then it quickly came crashing down for several reasons. Number one, the industry kind of got turned on its head from Amazon and bodybuilding.com with e-commerce. 2, our form of advertising was radio, which worked really well up until it didn't, and we didn't have a solution. And in that world, you had 90-day terms, so you were like 90 days behind on your advertising. And so I got into a cash flow issue, lost everything. So had almost an $8 million business, and it all came crashing down, rock bottom. There was another franchisee at the time who had a handful of 10 or 12 locations, and I came on there with some equity, and we grew that to 68 locations and over 40 million revenue in about 3 years. So was in that world for a little over a decade, sold my equity and left, and got into franchise development, which is where you help franchise brands grow their brands across the country. And that was a unique opportunity for me because I was one of the first franchisees. We had more locations as a franchisee than most people had as a franchisor. So we were kind of a mini franchisor ourselves, and did well at that. Left there and decided to start my own franchise brand, which was Mighty Dog Roofing. And we grew that and ended up having 8 more brands under a portfolio, and then got done with that. And here we are on to the next thing with Jungle Driving School.
So Jungle Driving School, it's your current endeavor. What is Jungle Driving School? How did you come upon it? And you look at, I'm sure, lots of concepts, just being a serial entrepreneur as you are. What stood out about Jungle, and what is the offering?
Right. And so I think, Jungle Driving School is a driver's ed concept for teens that does in classroom and online classes, as well as behind the wheel driver's education, with a unique spin. And I'll come back to that, what makes it so unique. But as a franchisor, when you're looking for concepts to build out across the country, it's a very similar criteria as someone looking to buy a franchise. And I know that I wanted customer acquisition. That's one of the most important things for emerging brands. You're not a McDonald's, you're not a Jimmy John's. You don't have just repetitive foot traffic from your brand until you're you're nationwide. And so being able to drive people to your location or know where they're at or convert customers is a huge thing for me. I wanted something that was a unique experience that you could charge a premium for. And I wanted to be able to leverage, clear, unique differentiators to outcompete competition. And when you look at a lot of businesses, like all the roofing companies now put on roofs the same way. You're not going to be, it's a price. You're price shopping people. And so I wanted something clearly that we could provide more value to charge more of a premium. And then we could leverage technology and a really unique experience to differentiate ourselves in the space. And, I consult with brands all the time. I've launched, I think, 15 or 16 concepts. And I got introduced to this brand through a mutual acquaintance. And I was like, a driving school. I was like, I don't know anything about driving schools, but I know that it was boring when I did it. And, I'll hear them out. And the first 10 minutes, I was like mouth on the floor. So there was 2 partners that started this company up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And one of them built the driver safety program for one of the largest package delivery services in the country. And he basically was credited with lowering the accident rate by 70%. He retires, talks to his neighbor and said, we need to save as many teen lives with this as we can. They start a driving school with the state curriculum, this methodology, and then they blanketed a jungle theme on top of it. And when he was explaining it, there's hyenas and there's crocodiles. I go, well, what are those? And he said, well, a hyena is somebody that butt sniffs all the other cars on the road. They demonstrate road rage, and they're really the worst drivers. I was like, gosh, I'm a hyena. Oh, gosh.
Takes one to know one, right?
Yeah. And then he said crocodiles are people that are waiting to pull out of parking lots or driveways that if you're not careful will drag you to your death. And I just thought, how unique is this? Wow. And so we only had like a 30-minute call that day. I think I was busy, and I was literally on other calls looking at other competitors in my area. And I was like, God, every other place that I found was a boring DMV, vanilla, just nothing special. And it just exists because it's a state mandated service. And so fast forward, I'm hooked. I need to get up there and visit Fred, who's the owner. And they actually tried to franchise in 2019, and COVID hit. Then one of the partners passed away. The next week, the other partner's son passes away, and there was this kind of battle to get the rest of the equity from the one partner's widow and the other partner that didn't go well. And we are here today, and I got introduced right when that kind of got done, and I was just hooked. So I flew up, visit Fred, and I'm saying, "How'd you get customers, Fred? You're slammed. How'd you get so many customers?" And Fred said, "We did a mailer once," and I was just like, that's it. That's all they've ever done up there. So we're assuming it's going to be a lot harder than that, obviously, but it's refreshing to hear that, gosh, we had to go door to door and knock on 2,000 doors before we actually built our business, or, we had to spend $250,000 to build an advertising strategy. It was clear, simple, where your customers are at, and it's pretty darn residual.
Yeah, when I'm thinking of driving school, I'm thinking of the classroom scene from Ferris Bueller, where, you got the person that's just hunched over on their desk, bored as all get out. I mean, I remember driving school for me. It was Jeff's driving school. And Jeff was this old guy, single shingle owner. I think his branding was Arial or Calibri font, 12 point, throw it on a t-shirt, sold Office Park that had it just it smelled. It was everything that a teenager wouldn't want to do. And now you think fast forward however many years, the attention span of teenagers has gotten even less. And I wasn't like I could lock in and focus for very long. I wasn't known for my attention span. So I think as I pitch this concept to folks who are asking what the hot franchise is, they understand it intuitively because we've gone through driving school. We sat through it. It sucks. It's boring. And as a result, oftentimes it's ineffective. It's check the boxes, get into the car, but not actually really be equipped. So what I'd be curious for you to explain a little bit, Zach, here is one, what makes the program different to actually engage teenagers? But two, how is it not only engaging to get people in the door and get them excited about something that's typically very nauseatingly boring, but also how is it effective by keeping kids on the road and keeping them safe more so than those other vanilla DMV style driving schools?
Well, every state has a mandated curriculum, and we have not found one that doesn't yet. But it's almost like having the teacher that just clocks in and goes through what the state wants you to teach.
Yeah.
And then there's the great teacher that takes their own spin, does it for 40 years, and that's your favorite teacher because they kept you engaged. It wasn't a one size fits all. And for this, we have a in classroom or a classroom style that educates on what the state obviously needs to be done, but also on the jungle way, where we're really trying to get kids to identify risk before there's catastrophe. So they get educated there, and then we're reinforcing those terms behind the wheel. So if you do a ride along with like an instructor, you took a different language. You don't know unless you've gone through the program. The kids will be driving like, oh, there's a hippo, or oh gosh, there are crocodiles coming up. I got to slow down. I don't expect teenagers to love to go to driving school, same as I don't think that they love to go to school. No. But if we make the experience more interactive, more memorable, we're going to keep kids safer. And they have a stat up at the Grand Rapids location where the state of Michigan says that 4 out of 5 kids are going to have some form of altercation within the first 3 years of having their license, either a ticket, accident, etc. They surveyed 1,000 kids through the Jungle 1,000 parents through the Jungle program, and it was 1 out of 5.
Wow!
So there's a 60% drop in instances, which, that's significant. So I'll tell you, the more I got into it, and the more I was looking at it from an entrepreneurship standpoint, I was just licking the lips like this is like it checks this box. It wasn't until I went and did a ride along with Fred, a young lady and her father, and because there's a parent ride along part of it, and I just kept thinking, it's like, my daughter's only 5, that my daughter's going to go through this exact same thing. When I'm, am I going to be the parent that just says, just book the quickest thing and be done with it and cheapest, or it's going to be, hey, everyone knows that Jungle has the best program to keep your kids safe. It's like, I'm absolutely going to send them to that. And that's where it really shifted, that we could do something incredible by bringing this across the country, and just the simple impact that we can make on keeping kids safer.
I love that. And I think that speaks to who the actual client here is. Who's the one paying for this? And it's parents, right? At the end of the day, kids have different preferences. I think a kid's preference would be, what's the path of least resistance? Right. But parents are on the road. They see how many people are distracted. They see the technology, that the texting and driving element, and how there's a safety concern. So for owners of a brand like this, is that the pitch here of, we have ways to keep your kids engaged, to keep them safer?
Well, I think the pitch is that we have a program that's more interactive, more memorable, that when you send your kid through this, they're going to use these strategies. We also have an integration with the parents' night where we get them to reinforce these strategies. And we do believe, and there's to say that we 100% know nationwide would be foolish, but we do really believe that this program is more effective to keeping kids safe than the common competitor that you find in your market.
You've seen a lot of brands. What makes this one different? What gets you excited about this one compared to a roofing franchise or a fitness franchise? I mean, you've worked on a lot of stuff and you've scaled a lot of franchise brands. What makes this one different?
Well, from nail salons to roofing to tree service to, gosh, what was something, painting, fitness, nutrition. I think when I'm going through it, I'm looking at it as like, okay, to grow this cross country, who's the biggest competitor? Who's the one that's built the footprint that we need to model from? There isn't one. We'd be first. So that's scary at first, because then you're like, okay, well, is there actually an opportunity to be nationwide? Mm-hmm. And really, there's just no one that's done it yet. There is competitors in every single city. It is a state mandated service. So 37 states require some form of driver's education. And there's just not someone that's had the capital or will to take it across multiple states that have different curriculum requirements. So that was a huge thing for me, is like, this is something that we can bring. We're an emerging brand today. Fast forward to a very short period of time, I don't believe we will be, but we already have a national brand look and feel. We have a team. We have a team of really experienced people in the franchise industry that can build this into a national brand. So that was the first thing that I checked the box on. I was like, we can be the first, and being first is a big part of it. We can be the first national brand in this space. So that was a huge opportunity. Proof of concept, proof of industry, no national competitor. So that was number one. Number two, your customers are the students, but the parents are the ones that pay. So technically, you have two customers that buy the same thing. So if we go to events, if we do sponsorships, we don't just have one customer. We have two that we can get in front of. So and we know where one of those customers are. At the student, we know where they are at in the spring, the fall, and the winter. Every single year, we know where they're at, and so we can build long-term relationships with the schools that feed us the customers. We can also leverage the kids themselves into being our marketers. And so from customer acquisition, out of every single thing that I've seen to date, this has got the simplest strategy of how to get customers to your door. And we've got a pretty innovative approach that I have not seen any other driving school do today. The third big thing was, every competitor I've looked at is boring, vanilla. It exists because it's a mandated service. There is not someone that has a specific experience or a team-driven experience that they're providing. So when I was just going through it, I go, no national brand competitor, like it. Customer acquisition, simpler and easier, like it. And the third is that going into a market, you can easily be better branded, more technology, and have a better experience than anyone else. And you'll get customers simply by having availability during the busy season. So we'll be able to charge a premium for our program. And when you caveat all and add we can really do something great by saving kids' lives. I mean, it was like I was getting nailed in the coffin every call I had, to be honest.
So I'm something on our profile. We do a profile with FranNet that anyone who's looking at a franchise, they walk through our profile. I'm something called an achiever. And so achievers, what people like me look for is what's the low-hanging fruit? What are people doing that there's always going to be an evergreen demand for? I mean, look, the economy could go in the tank. All could go wrong. And 16-year-olds are still going to want to get their license so that they can go hang out with their friends and be away from mom and dad. That's recession resilient, right? That this doesn't feel like a expendable discretionary purchase.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Not even going to roof your house before you keep your kids safe?
Yeah, right. Exactly. And or stop being a taxi service. I mean, there's so many parents I talk to, man, where their kids are 14, 15. They've got one son who's got baseball tournament on this side of town. They've got a dance competition on this side of town, volleyball tournament, recital, and they're just essentially a taxi service. So, I mean, there's a pain point for parents that want to get their kids through driver's ed. So, I like this as an achiever because at the end of the day, achievers are looking for low-hanging fruit. What are things that people are going to pay for no matter what that nobody does well? I mean, you've told me some of the stats. I mean, as bad as the competition is that's out there, there's still crazy wait lists. I mean, I know you've done some market research in Nebraska, but I mean, there's still people waiting in line just to go through these boring Ferris Bueller classroom style driving schools, right?
Yeah. The largest, so we're opening a corporate location in Omaha, and the largest competitor, when we went to start the pricing evaluation, was at every seat booked for 6 months.
6 months.
So we required 2 cars to start, and that triggered us to start with a 3rd car for the Omaha location. So we ordered a 3rd car that day, which hopefully should be here shortly.
Love that. What's the owner doing on a day in and day out basis? Because I love the product, I love the service here. Something that I always challenge franchise clients with is you can love the product, you can love the service, but you got to know what you're doing on a day in and day out basis. You can love what you're delivering, but if that's not what I would assume the franchise owner isn't teaching classes, isn't doing in-cars. Maybe they do an element of that, but what's the franchise owner doing on a day in and day out basis? And what are some of what's the ideal persona of a jungle driving franchisee?
In the beginning, we definitely want them. I think in any business, you got to get in the trenches a little bit.
Yep.
And I like that where you can get into it to enough where you can understand what the expectations can be set at. But for an owner, they're going to be teaching some classes, they're going to be doing some driving, but they're really going to be managing the business. So there's the one part of any business, there's the accountability aspect where you're going to have, and we recommend a weekly meeting where you're meeting with your team on KPIs of the business, issues that you're experiencing, and we have a process that you walk through, or we recommend that you walk through for that. So every business owner is going to have some form of business management philosophy that they manage the business with. We use EOS, and we encourage that. Mm-hmm. Business development is where I would prefer the owner to spend the majority of their time, which is building relationships that can send you kids on an annual basis. And so, you're going to have instructors that, their job is fairly repetitive. They teach a class, they drive a car, teach a class, drive a car. The routes are pre-routed, so they do the route multiple times. So when you scale, you're adding another instructor that's going through the same process everyone else is. So adding more customers is really where we'd like the owner to spend, or adding more kids is really where we'd like the owner to spend most of their time. And that's going into schools and talking with coaches and superintendents, that's setting up meetings with the other businesses, hosting events and sponsoring different sporting events, etc., things like that. But the owner can be in the business full time, or they can work on the business, with a GM, and that's more manage the manager. They can pick the pick.
So you love this concept. I love this concept. I think it's one that's going to take off. You're going to see a jungle driving school in your neighborhood before you know it. This isn't the only iron you have in the fire, Zach. And I think another reason why I wanted to have a conversation with you, because I think as someone were to look at your life, the income streams that you have, you live on a farm, you've got a cattle farm, that's a part of your portfolio. You've got jungle driving. You've built a mini Beutler family empire, which so many people who I talk to, they want that. They want to get out of working for somebody else and feel like they've got multiple income streams, maybe things they're passionate about, maybe things that just pay the bills. But you've taken advantage of opportunity that you've seen and built something pretty special. How did the beef business come into the fold for your family? And what have you learned as far as getting plugged in with different industries, different types of businesses that maybe you didn't have any prior experience in?
Well, I'll first say that it's not easier than working for somebody else.
No.
But it's far more rewarding. I'll start with a story, because I like stories. So this was a couple of years ago. My grandpa was in the cell barn still. And I think I stopped in at like 5 o'clock on a Wednesday, which he's never there at that time. He was still there penciling away at stuff. And then on Saturday, he was even still there. And I was like, Grandpa, what are you doing? And he was off on the books by like 40 some cents, which means that he underpaid somebody by 40 some cents. And he had to have spent an extra 20 hours that week trying to figure it out.
Oh my gosh.
And Now should that business have had a software system that make that easier? Probably. But my grandpa figured it out, and he mailed the change with a note to the customer and apologized for underpaying them. And I said, Grandpa, it's only a couple of cents. Can't you just give it to him? He goes, Zach, it's not my money. It's their money. They need to get their money. And so that was a very clear reminder that in business, your customers and the relationships you build is what makes your reputation. Your reputation is everything. And that's why this business here that my grandpa ran is still in operation 55 years later. So what I have learned is when you get into any business, the how you treat your employees, how you treat your customers, how you treat even your referral partners is so important. And I am a big experienced person. I like, I like being able to not make someone's day, but exceed their expectations. And to be honest, it's selfish. It makes me feel really good when I do that, but it also helps create relationships. And so whenever I look at other businesses, there's obviously passion and then there's profit. And so on some of the, like this business honestly started with profit. And then I did that right along, and it quickly was like, there's a mission here that we have to do this. So that was one way. The cattle business really started where my entire family's in the cattle business, and I was more feeding cattle as an investment. And there was a month where I think I had $250,000 invested, and I made $1 on a couple pens of cattle. And that month, the packer who we sold them to made more money per animal they've ever made. And I was like, this is just ridiculous. And so I told my wife, I was like, we're starting a beef business. We're going to sell beef online. And we got it all started. And my wife really took that business after we kind of got it off the ground and grew it through social media. So we shipped beef all over the country. And then I've wanted to be in the cow-calf business ever since I was little. I wanted to do that. And so I slowly got into that. And I'm very structured with where my focus is at. One of the best pieces of advice that I got was focus creates wealth and diversification preserves it. And so, you can do too many things and not do anything well. And so that was important, where in the Angus industry, I went out and found some of the most knowledgeable, well-respected people that I could, and just, to be honest, annoyed the shit out of them until I got kind of on their good side. And so I got a lot of great advice, a lot of structure, still made a ton of mistakes. And I've structured it to where that takes less of my time, but I get to do it when I want to do it. And I think any goal in your business should be able to give you the freedom to do what you want to do when you want to do it. And so we started the beef business, then I went into the Angus business. And then we're really focused on the jungle driving. But I think in anything, you have to figure out a way how you manage the people, and the people build the business. So you have to figure out what structures you're going to put in place to motivate people to help you build those things and help you, as David Goggins would say, carry the boats.
Yeah, man. Why do multiple things? I'm always curious about that. You could have stopped at just a lot of stops along the road, but you've continued to add. You've continued to diversify. What's your why for diversification, having multiple things going at once?
Well, I'm dumb. And I think this has gotten me in trouble. This character trait has gotten me in trouble, but yet has given me a great education. So my favorite quote is, good decisions come from experience, and experience come from bad decisions. It's by Mark Twain. But I get the itch of wanting to do something, and it's a disease. I can't get rid of it. It just sticks. It consumes my soul. And I'm not joking. And so I'm a big vision person. I have a vision board in my other office. Me and my wife create vision boards every year, and on there are things that I just know that I want this. I want to do this. And I'm a big visual guy, but I think getting that itch to do something, where in the past I just pull the trigger and jump right into it. Now I still pull the trigger and jump into it, but I know that, hey, to do this, I have to have X, Y, and Z, and this and that. And I've got boxes checked off before I kind of make that leap. But I know throughout that process that I have to do this, or I want to do this. And so I think I get something triggers where I want to do something or go down a path, or I'm open to opportunities and something presents itself. And once I kind of get a good understanding of it and I believe in it, I mean, it's on.
What boxes does an opportunity have to check for it to be worthy of your time or capital?
That's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that. I can, one of my gifts is aptitude. I can typically quickly see what buttons to push and levers to pull. Mm-hmm. If I can quickly see how to take this, add this, change this, do that from my experience in advertising, people, whatever it might be, and take it to this. If I can quickly see that, I'm kind of hooked. So that's the first thing. Where if I have to get in there and go, well, but how do you really scale it? If like some businesses where you have to have a college educated certified person that has the license. For me, it's like, well, but if that person quits, how do you do this? So I think I got to quickly see how I can take that business and scale it. If that checks the box, I think the second is, ethically, is this going to provide something that I want to be known for and part of the legacy that I want to leave? And there's been plenty of opportunities that didn't do that. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a big one, is the ethical aspect. And then the last is really, do I like doing it? I mean, it's got to have, I think you have to have interest.
Yeah.
There are people that say, I'll do any business. I don't have to be interested in it, but it sure helps.
Yeah.
Like to go into the office every day and do something that you absolutely hate would be absolutely terrible. And I have friends that to this day still do something that they don't enjoy. And I just look and go, dude, quit today. Just leave. Oh, I can't do that. I go, why not? Are you you don't have the resources to at least go find something else? I was like, I'm pretty sure you could. And so, but I think doing what you enjoy is probably the most important part. Is if you're not doing that, I mean, it can really damage yourself, your relationships, especially with a family, and it can affect how your kids grow up.
Well, and I wanted to ask you about that because I know your wife is a part of the cattle business. You're building your vision board. She's definitely a part of this. And part of your why for Jungle Driving was, see, this is what my kids are going to go through, and I want them to be a part of the safe driving program. How much does legacy and the next generation of Butlers play into the way that you go about your franchise endeavors, your personal business endeavors? How I'm sure they're always front of mind just as being a father, but what's the legacy that you're trying to leave behind for the next generation?
Dude, that is gave me goosebumps, to be honest. So I have this, like I think I told you I'm visual. I have this idea, and the way I've always looked at it is that I can see myself on this island living my absolute dream life, and then my kids and then their kids, and it's just the perfect utopia. And I know that I have to get there or I'm going to lose my absolute mind. But to get there, I take this long swim journey that I can't make today. Like I'm not good enough to make it. And so I got to figure out, how do I get better to be able to provide that or achieve that? I have that ever since I had the rock bottom where I lost everything. That's been something that I've always felt like I'm behind. And, but I think what I see myself doing is, like, when my kids get into their teens, what I don't want to have to do is, and I'm sure you hear it too, is like my kids say, Dad, you have to go to work today. It's like, just, I want to be able to say, no, you want to go do something else? I'll do it. I'll have them cancel it. Well, let's go do it. Like that truly is, freedom, is to do what you want to do when you want to do it. And I grew up in a family business, and I know what hard work looks like, and I know what doing hard work and not getting paid for looks like. Okay. And having your kids grow up with you in the business, I think the amount of value that you can give them to be successful in the future is, there's nowhere else they're going to get that.
Man, that's amazing. I remember, like you, I grew up in a family of my dad was a small business owner, but it didn't happen until I was in high school, really. And I remember it was a summer afternoon, and we were going to play golf. Him and I have an older brother, so the three of us were going to play golf, and he gets a call, and it's a work call. And he had just started doing his own thing. He had been in the corporate world for, most of my childhood. And he gets a work call, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to have to call you back on Monday. I'm going into a meeting." And I remember he hung up. I said, "Dad, I thought we were going to play golf. You have a meeting?" He's like, No. This is my meeting. You and Trenton playing golf. That's my meeting. That can wait. And that has always stuck with me, because that was a tangible moment where I realized a shift in my dad's mindset, where he's in control of his schedule. There were plenty of times where, my dad wanted to take me to a baseball game, but couldn't because he was traveling, and I knew it killed him. And by the grace of God, we were in a position family-wise, financially, where he was able to make that jump. But I will never forget that just brief little moment. And who knows if he even remembers that, but that was, I think that represented a really significant shift that I think he's grateful that wasn't necessarily easy to make that jump. But man, being able to be in a position where even if it means I'm staying up late working on something that's mine, I can cancel it if something more important comes up.
So there's a book, I got to look it up real quick because it's life-changing. So I'm an EO, and there was a gentleman in our group that was reading a book, and it was the theme of our meeting that day, or our retreat, was intention. To be intentional with your experiences, being intentional with how your kids view you and your time. And there was this book, and in the book there was a gentleman who wrote that his favorite experience with his dad was a specific fishing trip. And his dad passed away, and he found his dad's journal, and it said, on that specific thing, I flipped to that day and said, on that specific day, it said, "Wasted the day fishing with my kid." That's all it said. And this was the kid's favorite memory, just devastated. And so that was a pretty emotional turning point for me as an entrepreneur, where, and your intention is so important. And I got lost early on with the addiction of the next thing, the addiction of the building. There's I'd always say, I gotta go to work. I really didn't have to. I just wanted to. And so that book's called From Strength to Strength. And that was a big gift for me. So my daughter and I, we do like a monthly where we go and do like a daddy-daughter date.
Love it.
She's all dressed up, and she's just like, she can barely hold her excitement. All we do is go to the local town bar and grill and just get dinner together. It's like the best day ever for her. And so I think your intention is so important with, how your kids view you and the relationships that they build, how your wife, how your wife views you, how your employees, your customers. So I think intention is so important, and having your own business allows you to be intentional with your time. It gives you the freedom to do that.
That's what we're all trying to build. I think there's something innately built in us as parents, as fathers, as mothers, to have nothing impede us from being present. And I think as kids, there's nothing more pure than the desire to just be along for the ride with what mom and dad are doing, right? That's naturally, I think, how humans learn. Is not school's important, all these things are important, but ultimately just watch what mom's doing, watch what dad's doing, because I'm there all the time. And that's how things get passed down through the generations. And that's why I think for you and for me, that's ultimately why getting into business ownership so special, is because we get to build that family legacy, because there's no barrier or gatekeeper that's keeping us from being integrated as a family unit. Now, doesn't mean your kid's doing everything with you. They're not in a confidential client meeting, right? But there's a level of visibility that's age appropriate as time goes on, that you're in control of. And that's really energizing. That's really exciting. So, hey man, I appreciate you taking some time today. We'll have to do this again. I don't want to go.
This is great.
Yeah, man. I don't want to go full Joe Rogan and do like a whole 3-hour podcast here. I think we'd lose some folks in the process, but we'll loop back for this again. Where can people find out a little bit more about Butler Beef, about you, about Jungle Driving?
Butlerbeef.com. Butler Cattle Company. It's Beutler, and then jungledriving.com, baby.
Awesome, man. Hey, always appreciate chopping it up with you, Zach, and keep on fighting the good fight, man.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for having me.
We'll see you.